Our job is to report the news, not fabricate it. That's the government's job.
Well, this is pretty funny and something we have been telling the BBC to do since they first started it years ago. Personally, I blame the likes of Twitter for this never-ending virtue signalling nonsense we get from some sections of the world, but other sites are also to blame. I am of course talking about new BBC director Tim Davie, who has told BBC staff they are not to attend political events, as we all know they have been doing over the past few months. Take the BBC reporting over the summer with their articles of mostly peaceful mass gatherings, despite the opposite being true. Now it appears they are banned from taking political sides, which has ended Gary Lineker's Twitter engagement, I would bet, since most of his tweets are virtue signalling political rants these days. And from the wording of the statements, these are directly aimed at news reporters and the likes of Gary Lineker, which is good and bad. Personally, I think they should be able to voice their opinions, even if I mock them for it. But mainly, I think they should be allowed to do it because each time they do, more and more people turn off their drip-fed fecal matter. Gary Lineker's bile is not swaying anyone, as we see during the last election. Celebrities do not speak for us, and we do not agree with them. We like whatever it is they did to become famous, not their politics, as I've said many times. So let's see what the BBC has to say about their new rules and laugh at how salty this will get the likes of Gary Lineker and Emily Maitpiss. It headlines, the BBC issues staff with new social media guidance. The BBC has issued new guidance on social media usage which will force staff to maintain impartiality, something they should have been doing anyway, I'm sure you would all agree. Employees will be told not to express a personal opinion on matters of public policy, politics or controversial subjects. The announcement follows new Director General Tim Davie's pledge last month to impose new social media rules. The BBC will also tell staff to disclose their earnings outside of the corporation on a public database, because obviously they've been doing a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes. The BBC said it had considered impartiality in the context of public expression of opinion, taking part in campaigns and participating in marches or protests. The new guidance on social media will apply to staff whether they are using online platforms professionally or personally, so Gary Lineker is right in the shit there if he wants to continue. Staff will be told they must not bring the BBC into disrepute or criticise colleagues in public. It adds, if your work requires you to maintain your impartiality, don't express a personal opinion on matters of public policy, politics or controversial subjects. Guidance will also be issued on avoiding bias through likes, follows, retweeting and other forms of sharing. Because naturally Twitter is a left-wing echo chamber where these low-down dirty shitweasels sit there liking, retweeting the other crap that their lefty losers put out. The BBC said there would be tougher guidelines for some staff in news, current affairs, factual journalism, senior leadership and a small number of presenters who have a significant public profile, obviously talking about Gary Lineker, because he has a large public profile and is constantly talking shit. Some presenters, it says, have faced criticism for sharing personal views on Twitter in recent years. Yeah, that is an understatement. I would say most of them have. They include Match of the Day presenter Gary Lineker, who often uses his Twitter feed to comment on non-football matters, something we have called out many times before. BBC cricket correspondent Jonathan Agnew took issues with this in 2018, asking Lineker to observe BBC editorial guidelines and keep his views on politics to himself. Bobby Friction, a presenter on the BBC Asian network, recently deleted a tweet which criticised the government after BBC management intervened. The guidance states staff should avoid using disclaimers such as "my views, not the BBC's" in their biographies and profiles, as they provide no defence against personal expression of opinion. Yeah, because a Twitter bio, I'm pretty sure, won't be a legal defence, let me tell you that, if these people take you to court. It also advises staff against using emojis which could reveal an opinion and undercut an otherwise impartial post, and to always assume they are posting publicly even if they have tight security settings. The guidance states employees should avoid virtue signalling and adds, remember that your personal brand on social media is always secondary to your responsibility to the BBC, which is a bit concerning to me, but I don't work for the BBC so I shouldn't really care. But avoiding virtue signalling is going to be very difficult for a lot of these BBC presenters, especially Gary Lineker, as we will see later. The newly announced register of external engagements follows criticism criticism of some high-profile BBC employees for extra work they have taken on outside the BBC. Tim Davie said presenters and journalists risk their impartiality while earning large sums of money for corporate work. Before now, BBC staff were required to seek permission before taking on commercial work, but there was no central database and they did not have to publicly disclose how much they had earned. The BBC said it will now publish information about outside engagements and payments on a quarterly basis, starting in April 2021 to cover the period from January to March 2021. So we won't see any of their connections before next year, but at least that's going to happen then. Because I would bet plenty of these BBC presenters have been paid by God knows who, and I wonder if that actually affects the way they report the news. I actually bet it does. It goes on, the corporation will be showing whether a fee was paid for each event, and if so, whether it was above or below 5,000. The move follows press reports about outside speaking engagements for journalists including Fiona Bruce, Nagaman Che, Simon Jack and Kamal Ahmed. But we won't find anything about how much any of these people have been paid in future. As it says there, it will just be whether it's below or above 5 grand, which I expect most, if not all, are going to be. There will also be a new standardised approval process for external work to ensure consistency. The BBC already publishes the salaries of its highest paid stars as part of its annual report. Last month, Mr Davie told MPs that disciplinary action would be among very clear sanctions for major breaches of impartiality guidelines. He said that in some cases, staff would be asked to suspend their Twitter accounts if they wanted to continue working for the BBC. So they will literally yeet your Twitter account if you don't listen. The BBC are turning as draconian as the government right now. I am prepared to take the appropriate disciplinary action all the way to termination, he told the Commons Digital Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee. Social media guidelines will make clear where the lines are, he said. If someone is a face of the BBC, I think entering into party politics seems to me not to be the right place. Which obviously it's not, but I kind of enjoy them doing it because it ensures that what they want will never happen. And it finishes up with, when he took over from Tony Hall at the beginning of September, Mr Davie told staff he wanted to renew the BBC's commitment to impartiality. If you want to be an opinionated columnist or a partisan campaigner on social media, then that is a valid choice, but you should not be working for the BBC, he said. Earlier this year, the BBC commissioned an independent review on how the corporation maintains impartiality on social media. It is being headed by Professor Sam Brooke, a former director of global news at the BBC, who is now Director of Journalism of Cardiff University. So I will wait and see what that independent review brings up. I can't see how you can claim it's independent with former BBC directors heading it, but that's just the BBC, I guess. Now, it is rather worrying that the BBC is essentially censoring the free speech of its presenters. But let's be honest, they have been a complete shit show over the past few years and have made it look worse than it does for itself. But as you all know, I thoroughly enjoy the bullshit that BBC presenters come out with, especially on Twitter and including Gary Lineker. So this is a sad day for me partly, but it is also funny that Gary Lineker's Twitter account has essentially just been kicked to the fucking curb.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.